Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Wednesday. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday. It is a Match Day Wednesday. It is a massive Match Day Wednesday as Atlanta United heads south to Fort Lauderdale to face Inter Miami in a 6-point clash for a playoff spot. It is a huge game. We'll get into all of that throughout the show, but especially in hour number 2 with Mike Conti joining us at 10 o'clock, with Doug Robertson joining us at 10:30. We'll take your questions throughout the show. You can submit them a number of different ways. You can join us on the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere. You can send us an email, soccerdownhere@gmail.com, and you can tweet at us at soccerdownhere, and we have a few tweets in the barn as well. I want to jump on this one because I missed it yesterday in the email section of the questions. And this is from friend of the show, Colin Martz, asking about a player who's been linked to Atlanta before, Jefferson Soteldo. He's a player who, Venezuelan national, plays for Santos in Brazil. Santos has some money issues. Some of that we talked about a little bit with Robinho returning there for the 4th time and making $229 a month. They're struggling. He is their biggest asset. Could he be another possible link? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He would be more of that wide player. Like if Barco goes, could he be a replacement for Barco? Yes, he could. He is kind of that ilk, a smaller player, great on the dribble, great in the 1v1. He fits the profile. He's been a target before. We don't know how serious that target was, but the money problem thing is going to come up and make players available. It's going to happen. And you're going to have to be really, I think, shrewd in how you manage this. Because, as Colin points out on the Santos deal with Soteldo, they still owe his past club money for that transfer. So when you get into these situations, it's like Austin picking up Cecilio Dominguez from Independiente. They had to make the move because they couldn't afford to pay him anymore, and they still owed money on the deal. There's other players who are in these kinds of situations. If MLS can navigate the financials of everything going on right now, and I hate that this would be the way that happens, MLS can absolutely jump into the picture on some players that maybe they couldn't afford, or maybe were just out of their price range before, or maybe some guys who wanted to hold out and try to go to Europe first instead of coming to MLS as the intermediary step. Those opportunities might not be there. Clubs might not be able to wait. Players might not want to wait. It opens up some big, big possibilities for Atlanta, for other clubs in Major League Soccer. And Soteldo's one you have to keep an eye on for sure.
No, and you've mentioned consistently, pretty much over the last year, about the South American market, South American franchises, teams, and it being a place under general circumstances where South American players can come and have MLS as that mid-step before heading over to the European theater. But obviously, because of the economic situation that we're currently in, you could see some of these transactions escalate in number and just in the time frames. And instead of going straight to Europe, having that mid-step being more frequented, I guess, is the word that I'm looking for where MLS is concerned. So it's, once again, you're looking at the economics of a situation, and MLS can sit there, and the franchises that can keep an eye on the South American market can capitalize, and that's a word to use, but they can take advantage of the situation that's going on with what's going on economically around the world right now.
It's the word to use, and it's not a negative word. Capitalize is not a negative word. It's not something to run from. If you have your league structured to be able to handle, crisis better than others, that's not a negative. That's a positive. That's why MLS is in the position that they could be in, because they could be able to bring some of these players in. Checks won't bounce. They have the money to go spend to bring some of these players in who might not have been available before. This is a big opportunity, and Soteldo is one of those kinds of names that maybe felt like he was just slightly out of range before. Maybe he is in range now, and we'll see what this next window looks like going into the 2021 season. But there's a lot of things going on with this season that we're going to have to get into. We will get into MLS Fantasy ahead of the games tonight. We will get into Juice Boxes ahead of the games tonight. Lots of different things going on the USL front, and we don't really have a whole lot of updated information outside of Jeff Reuter's piece at The Athletic, which is highly recommended, on what MLS could look like with their second teams with USL next season. We don't really know yet, and it sounds like there's some things up in the air here. There were reports earlier in the day that 3 teams would be pulling their second teams out of the USL competition, Orlando, Portland, and Philadelphia. When I saw that initially, Philadelphia made no sense to me because this is a club that's trying to develop young talent. But then you get the secondary portion of news where MLS is looking at creating a U23 league, and that was left off of the initial report. It's sounding like it would be a U23 league that would allow some overage players from time to time injury rehab situations. So, is that going to be treated like the old MLS Reserve League was, which was a joke? It can't be. If it's going to be successful, it cannot be, because that was a league where you'd have an MLS match on Saturday night, and then you'd have a reserve game on Sunday morning with some players who didn't play in the MLS match, and then some teams wouldn't be able to field a full team, so they'd be pulling front office people into play, and it was a joke. You can't have that. If this is going to be treated seriously as a true U23 league like we've seen in Mexico, like we've seen in other leagues, with the ability to play somebody who's recovering from injury, who needs some games to get sharp, all that, okay. Is that better than USL League One or USL Championship for teams? I think it depends on the team. I think it depends on the club. And I've already had questions after that report about, what does that mean for Atlanta United 2? I honestly don't know. A lot of people said when USL League One opened that MLS should put their second teams in League One. Well, I think you saw this year, and Orlando being one that isn't in a great spot in League One, New England in League One. Look at the travel they've had to take on this year in League One. The financials affect this, and that needs to be understood. Just like we're talking about potential transfers of players who could be available now, you have taken a financial hit, and you've got to figure out how to navigate that. Is the team playing in a third division league that is traveling to Tucson and traveling to Omaha if you are in Foxborough, Massachusetts, is that helping those players get better? I don't have the answer. And they would have to answer that question for you. New England, from an academy standpoint, is probably a couple years away. Orlando has never gotten it right, but Oscar Pareja is a manager who has gotten it right in the past. And I would think this would be a big part of developing players through the academy, having that second team, what it means. Philadelphia is a club that has had great success developing players through a second team. They're at the championship level. We know the Red Bulls take their USL championship team very seriously. We know that Atlanta takes their USL championship team very seriously. It's not just out there to play, and there's no thought to the way you're building this team and what you're putting on the field. There's thought to developing the young talent. There's thought to how you develop the young talent. Go back and listen to the 1v1 that we just posted yesterday with Tony Annan, and you'll get a glimpse of that. This was a different kind of year. In some ways, it became a better year for an Atlanta United 2 because of the minutes that your Coleman Gannons, your Will Rileys, these guys got on the field that was not expected. That's going to be a benefit long-term, potentially. Do you want to drop essentially down a level? Because if you're going into a new league, if you create your own league, and you're in a U23 league with teams who some take it seriously, some don't, you're kind of back to the academy side of things in some way where, and this was something that Tony said that really stuck out to me. I don't want to spoil too much of the 1v1 because I want you guys to go check it out. It's worth listening to the whole thing. But he said something about the academy side that fascinated me. So when they're planning their game schedule on the academy, they want 50% of the games to be hard, to be above the level of the team, to be a challenge. 50%. They want 25% to be within the age group, playing kind of like-minded peers, that kind of thing. And they want 25% to be games that you should win. That's going to build confidence. You've got to find that balance. So if you have a U23 team, it's going to feel like it's attached to the academy. They're talking about it being a Division III pro league and be sanctioned by U.S. Soccer. That's going to be a process as well. How do you get that done? Are they willing to do that? Are they excited to do that? We'll have to see. I would assume they wouldn't fight it too hard. It would be separate from NISA. It would be separate from USL League One. But would it be uneven in terms of would you hit that 50%, that 25 that you're looking for development? I don't know. And you won't know until you see how everybody takes it, how seriously they take these teams. I would not be surprised if you see a number of teams opt to stay in USL, and it sounds like that's an option on the table while this develops and takes a little bit of a wait and see on this. A couple things as this has come up on the Twitch pitch that I want to hop into. So let me scroll back to the beginning. It's not an MLS reserve league in the old sense. It's not a reserve league in any real sense. It's a U23 league that would allow some overage players. That is a different idea here. The reserve league was an absolute joke. It was a joke with the way it was structured. USL Championship, USL League One, 1,000,000 times better than the old MLS Reserve League. This can't be the old MLS Reserve League. If this is more along the lines of the academy side, okay, I can deal with that. But you've got to find a way for example, Atlanta United 2 to get games like they got with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Because those were games that made Atlanta United 2's young players better. By playing seasoned pros, a good team that is trying to win the game. Those were great, challenging matches. You need those. If you get up into a game where Nashville comes to town, I'm just using Nashville because they're close. Nashville comes to town, they play the night before, they're not taking their U23 team seriously. You play them the next morning or whatever in this game, and it's just a joke of a game because, it's some guys who probably aren't at that level. It's not a challenge, and those are the games you get. It's not going to help you from a development sense. So it's got to be about developing players. Abby asked what this means for USL. Now, USL has started, and I think you've seen the glimpses of it over the last few years, to push a little bit more into being on their own. They needed MLS when the partnership happened. MLS needed the partnership. It worked for both sides. USL was trying to hold off the North American Soccer League at that time. MLS was about to partner with North American Soccer League in this way, but the New York Cosmos came into the NASL and didn't want to be in anything like that. They thought they could take on MLS, which was not a good idea. So they forced this partnership, and it worked really well. Both sides benefited. Well, USL's grown a lot now. USL's not the same league they were at that point. USL at that point had dropped down to be a D3 league. People had left USL to form the North American Soccer League. USL has had a great rebirth. Do they need the partnership as much as they used to? Some would say they don't. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with them either. I think having the option of fielding teams in USL is going to be the best route, at least for a while. But in general, does USL need the MLS second teams to be what they are today or to potentially grow? I don't know if they do. I really don't. I think they need the numbers in terms of USL League One right now because they need to grow that, and that's going to be harder at the moment just because of the financial implications of the pandemic. But in general, no, I don't think the USL needs MLS. I think it's a good partnership still. I really do. But I don't know if either side needs the other like they did before. Byrne says, reserve leagues make no sense. Rest of the world went away from it, except, of course, the Premier League, who now spends hundreds of millions buying their own young players back from the Bundesliga. I knew you were going to throw that one in, Byrne. Mm-hmm. I'm not against it. I've enjoyed watching USL Championship. I've enjoyed these matches between the second teams and the independent teams. I think it's good for both leagues. I think it's good for development. I don't know where the USL teams stand on, and this would be the question. The Tampa Bay Rowdies, for example. Do they see a difference in revenue at the gate from playing Atlanta United 2 versus playing whoever, Charleston or Charlotte or anybody? Is there a difference in, do some people say, well, I don't want to go watch somebody's second team? That's been floated out there. I've never seen any information to back it up. Now, I do know on the other side, you do see a difference if you're playing, for example, Phoenix or New Mexico or Sacramento, where they're drawing, and Tampa Bay at times too, where they're drawing 7, 8, 9, 10, 12,000 people. And the second teams don't draw like that because that's not their job. They're not there to do that as much. That people have taken that as a negative. I don't know if ESPN sees that as a negative. I don't know if USL sees that as a negative. I don't know. That part's a definite. I don't know if playing a second team affects the dollars and cents for these teams. If it does, then I do understand their reluctance to have the second teams in. When the second teams don't take their role seriously, I understand the reluctance to it. When you've had some of these bad second teams that have been run poorly and haven't accomplished anything. Atlanta United 2, people might say that about Atlanta United 2, but go look at the scores. Like, you're getting competitive games on a regular basis. That's important. So, if the games are competitive, if it's not affecting the dollars and cents as opposed to who you're playing, and the MLS teams are getting the development they want, I think the partnership is still good, and I think all those things are still in place. But I don't have the answers to the USL independent teams that have influence. Do they want the MLS second teams in? It's been rumored that they want to go away from that. It was rumored that they wanted to force them down to the third division, to League One. I don't think anybody ever went on the record with it.
Yeah.
So that's the part I'm wondering about, because if that is a movement in USL, well, then it's probably time to start exploring how you split and how you do your own thing in separate ways. They should still try to keep some form of a working relationship. They really should. And for teams that want to participate in USL, they should have the option at least for a while, I would think. But we'll see.
I think that, when you look at the major independents in USL Championship, and especially the younger franchises, the El Pasos, the New Mexicos, Phoenix, not quite as young as others, then you have Charlotte, Charleston, Tampa as examples. I would think that those fan bases are just as warm to anybody walking in the door, regardless if they're a second team or an independent side, just because they are enjoying the experience of having that team in that market, their home team. So they're going to go see whoever's there.
That's a guess. I don't know. I mean, that's what you would think. That's what you would think. I don't. I've heard and I've seen it from hardcore fans that they don't get as excited about playing somebody's second team. Casual fans probably aren't as worked up about that because they're still getting to know the league, getting to know the teams, getting to know your team. I don't have the answer. I mean, none of us have the answer. There's never been a study done on it that I know of. So it's something that would be part of this equation. I think it has to be. If these clubs feel like it's affecting their bottom line because there's not as much interest, then okay, you probably need to move in a different direction. But I could also see the benefit, and again, this gets back to kind of removing the division labels a little bit that really aren't that important when you're not doing the promotion relegation. And it goes back to money because the question, I think Abby had it in the Twitch pitch about, why are these things being talked about right now when financials are a big concern? I think that's part of it. Yeah. But if you created, and I know not all parts of the country are going to be the same in this, but if you created a league where you had, just in this region, the Red Wolves, Atlanta United 2, Birmingham, Statesboro, Charleston, Charlotte, Charlotte FC 2, North Carolina, Tampa Bay, Orlando, Miami. You get Jacksonville into the mix again. Memphis, Nashville too. That's not a lot of travel that you're going to have to make.
Right.
And you're playing consistent games at a lower tier level. Is that good for the Atlanta, Nashville, Charlotte, Miami, Orlando 2 teams? I would think so. Is it good for the independent teams in the region? I would think so. I don't know for sure. Greenville mixed into that as well. You get kind of remove the levels. I don't know. I don't know if that was ever really explored. Look, I don't have the answer here because I don't have all the information. I don't have all the books here. But I do think the partnership, compared to the old Reserve League to what has happened here, players have benefited from their minutes in USL Championship and USL League One. Caden Clark is a prime example. Caden Clark scored 3 goals, 5 assists for New York Red Bulls 2 in like 11 games this season. They wanted to sign him. They had to deal with all the stupid rights with Minnesota, even though he didn't ever played for a Minnesota team. And they got it, and he comes in and he scores a goal immediately. You're starting to see players make that jump from USL Championship into MLS quicker and be effective. Here, Lawrence Wyke. Lawrence Wyke has not looked out of place at all for Atlanta United after a year with Atlanta United 2 when he was not on anybody's radar. The homegrowns, obviously, we've seen their growth in USL competition. Ricardo Pepi, we could keep going on and on about that. There's been huge benefits. My concern is that you might lose some of those benefits if you go to your own in-house U23 league, which wouldn't be looked at in the same way. I think you benefit from the pressure, from the competition, from playing different kinds of opponents. I hope you can find a way to bridge that gap. I really do. I really do. That's my biggest concern.
Tafka says if MLS clubs exit for a U23 Reserve League, it also opens up the market for an independent club in USL. I think USL gains a lot of legitimacy when there's only independent clubs and can now implement USL without having to make rule exclusions for MLS2s.
That's what a lot of people say. Tafka's not the only one who says that. I think it makes it better for USL to not have the second teams in it. I'm not 100% convinced of that yet. And maybe I would have been more convinced of it if we weren't in the midst of a pandemic, because I don't know how many new markets are coming in right now.
Yeah.
If there's a bunch of teams waiting, okay, cool, go for it. But I don't think the second teams drag USL down. And there's not a whole lot of rule exclusions. That part's, I think, a little false. From a roster and a construction standpoint, it's the same. From a minimum standards thing, it's the same. So there's nothing different there. It limits some of your markets. Now, that would be the other thing, is if USL then decides to go and say, well, let's put a USL team in Atlanta because we don't have a team in Atlanta right now. Well, what about Atlanta United? Well, but we can do what we want because we don't have a USL team there. That would be a bad move, in my opinion, across the league. Could it work in some markets? Sure. There's a few that it could. I think Chicago would have been one that it could have when they talked about it, but now the Fire are back in downtown. I don't think it works. Again, I don't have the answers here. Nobody does. There's a whole lot of speculation, and there's a whole lot of soapboxes being built. I hope USL is going to be in a good position here because we need a thriving second division. It's good for the game. We need a thriving third division. It's good for the game. USL's done an amazing job of those things over the last few years. When USL made the decision, when the North American Soccer League broke away, because it was a breakaway league from USL, I think sometimes that gets forgotten. It was. USL dropped down to the third division and basically got their house in order because they needed to, because teams broke away for a reason. You had seen teams come and go and come and go and come and go. I remember the California Victory coming into USL First Division, and they were some kind of subsidiary with Alaves in Spain. And they were a joke of a team, and they only lasted 1 year, and it was awful. You'd have teams come in because the check cleared. And that's why, kind of ironically, the NASL teams wanted to break away because they wanted to set higher standards. And they did for the second division, and then they couldn't meet it themselves. USL dropped down, rebuilt, created this partnership, started to move forward in the right direction and then could meet those second division standards and in some ways surpass them across the board. And that's been great. And it's been a good thing for the game as a whole. Now you're seeing, young players signed in USL. They don't have to go to MLS if the spot's not open for them there. Go sign in USL. You can make a nice pro career for yourself. Those things are all real, and it's good. I hope that this split, if it goes down the way that it's sounding like, and I hope it's an amicable split, that everybody's going to win here, because there doesn't need to be friction at this level. It's not going to benefit to have friction at the second and third division level right now between MLS and USL. Nobody's going to benefit from that. USL is not going to become an MLS competitor. I think some people are floating that idea as like, oh, here we go, soccer wars, yeah. Stop the fantasy dreams and the cosplay with it. That's not a smart move for USL. It doesn't make sense. They've got a whole market out there of smaller cities, of communities that will fund and support and allow teams to thrive at a lower level than MLS. There's no reason outside of ego to go try to compete head-to-head with a bigger, better-funded league. That's a dumb idea. Don't do it. There's no need for it. But MLS has developmental aims here that they have to meet. And the partnership has helped them do that, and I hope doing their own thing would allow them to do that and do more. I mean, Byrne says, I sense that the USL's obstinance this year in handling the whole protocol issues, which favored the independent teams, may have contributed to MLS getting fed up with them. It's possible. I don't know how much was on USL and how much was inevitable with protocols back and forth, and how much of it was honestly the MLS side with the 10 days coming back in. I don't think USL was difficult to deal with on coming in to USL. I think it was MLS on coming back to MLS. I don't know. This would open up the door, I would assume, for MLS to say, okay, we've got our U23 league. You can play games there, and you can play games with the first team, and no problems. It's going to affect how I don't know if it's going to affect the CBA, or you're going to have to make additions to it or addendums, but it's going to affect how MLS teams can build rosters, because I would assume that everything would then be in-house. It would affect movement. It would allow you to move back and forth, and I don't think USL blocked that as much as MLS did in terms of stashing guys on your second team and then moving them back and forth freely. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's going to be interesting.
Tafka has a quick clarification before I go to Keith Filer's question about academies.
Yeah.
Tafka meant rule exclusions for pro-rel.
But then we're in a total hypothetical, Tafka. So, I mean, I don't think there was ever any rule exclusions for pro-rel about any rumored pro-rel between Championship and League One, because you have USL or you have MLS teams in both. So, I mean, that would be in the hypothetical world of things that aren't real right now. And there's no exclusion. So leave that to the side. This is complicated enough as it is, and we'll see what it looks like. We'll hopefully get more soon, because, I mean, MLS is launching MLS Next. It's underway right now with their new academy structure. You're having to figure that out on the fly. If you do this for next year with some teams, is it going to be enough to make it viable? I mean, is it going to be just instead of New England Revolution 2 going to Tucson, or are they still going to be having to go to Colorado to play games? Is that going to be worth it? I don't know.
Keith Filer, he says that it was a great 1v1 that you had with Tony Annan. He says he always loved those with Tony. Listening to the discussion about how well the academy is doing, it made me think about how you see our youth development compared to other teams that may put more of a focus on youth development, like a Dallas.
I don't know if Keith meant it this way. Others have, and I do not understand why anybody would have a problem with Atlanta United's youth development. The club's not even 4 years old yet. Period. I mean, we always get into this, and it's like, what has Orlando produced from their academy? They had a 2-year head start. What does Minnesota produce? They started the same year. You know, I mean, at a minimum, you've got George Bello as one of the best left backs in MLS right now, who came through your academy already. You've had other homegrown sign. You've had some do well. You've had some not. You've had some make it, some don't. That's Dallas too. That's everybody. That's any club in the world. But you're 4 years in. Like Dallas got a big head start on this. Dallas, Oscar Pareja was there building their academy before he went to Colorado to be the first team coach. Then he comes back to Dallas. Lucha Gonzalez is in there. He's built on what Oscar built. They've had a long time. Philadelphia's had a long time. Philadelphia's only now starting to get it right. So it's not something that happens overnight. And I do think Atlanta puts as much resources towards their academy as anybody in the league. I don't check the books on this, but I think it's kind of impossible to say that Atlanta doesn't spend enough on the academy. The difference is going to be that Atlanta has the money also to go get players like Miguel Almiron, Joseph Martinez, Pity Martinez, Ezequiel Barco, Marcelino Moreno. They have the ability to go get those kinds of players too. They also have the ability to spend on the mid-tier guys, the TAM guys, and they do. And that's why I think I pushed back so hard on the idea that Arthur Blank's not spending enough to build quality teams. He's going to spend as much as he can spend. He's done that for the Falcons from day one. He's going to do that here. It's not about spending. That's not the issue. So the academy is the same thing. It just doesn't happen overnight. The 12-year-olds, the U12, so they were 10 and 11 at the time, who came in year one of the academy for the 2016-17 season. You're talking about kids who are now 15, 16, just getting to that point. Efrain Morales, for example, was on the very first team before the academy even opened that went to play in a U12 Generation Adidas thing in Texas. He was on that team before it was even a finalized academy. He just signed a homegrown deal at 16. That's where you're going to start to see more come through. But as we've talked about with Barcelona, as you can look at Manchester United, who had their golden generation of ability through the academy that has dried up in since. As you see a lot of clubs, youth development's not easy for anybody to get it right. So Atlanta's doing really well for having a short period of time. Just the fact they've produced George Bello in the short period of time is very impressive. There's more coming, and they're going to continue to put the resources to it, even at a time right now where some clubs are probably cutting with the resources they're putting towards the academy. Minnesota did. Atlanta's not. So, that's what it is.
Dan Graham is in this morning, and he says, will Atlanta United follow Portland and Philadelphia in leaving the USL behind? I'm for staying, since I feel it gives a better barometer of where the players are in their development. The difficulty lies in how players can move between MLS and whatever the second team will be.
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. That's the hard thing about it, is there's no way to know that until we know actually what's on the table as where you'd go. What is that structure going to be? Are you going to have that movement back and forth? There's not necessarily a guarantee that until you give up the structure. I would be fine with staying in USL Championship because I think we saw this year it really benefited Atlanta's young players, and their young players were able to compete with guys twice their age with hundreds of games in the professional level, and your Caleb Wileys and Will Rileys, et cetera, were able to compete with that. So I would like to see them stay if possible, but I don't know how long that's going to be possible. We don't really have all the parameters here. So let's wait and see. It's still going to be a program that is taken very seriously. Atlanta's team is essentially a U23 anyway, with a few exceptions. That's always going to be that way. It's always going to be more of an extension of the academy than a reserve team of 30-year-olds who haven't made it at MLS yet, because there's no point in that. It's always got to be about the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds getting games and getting development time and learning through good and bad. That's what it's going to have to be either way, whichever league you're in.
Taka says making it into the first team for Atlanta is the hardest climb in the league because we max out cap usage techniques that most clubs don't.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about a different level. I mean, Dallas is not going to spend that way. So if you are a player coming through as a forward, as Ricardo Pepi, for example, Dallas did just spend on Franco Jara. Okay, Pepe's got competition, but they're not going to get Joseph Martinez. If you're a number 10 coming through, Andrew Carlton, for example. I mean, Andrew Carlton wasn't able to beat out Miguel Almiron, Pity Martinez, Ezequiel Barco. I mean, you're talking incredible talent. And Andrew Carlton didn't rise to that challenge yet. Maybe he does at some point. He had a good year for Indy. I don't know if it's a good enough year to change everything, but it was a good year. That's hard. That's hard, and that's okay. You see players from Barcelona not be able to get through at Barcelona and go elsewhere because they run up against a Luis Suarez or they run up against a Lionel Messi or whoever it is, and they have to go elsewhere, but they developed at Barcelona. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But yeah, it is the hardest climb, I think. Toronto has that in some ways, but I don't think they put as much into their academy. LAFC does, but their academy is even a year younger than Atlanta's, so it's going to need a little more time. We'll see about Miami. I think they'll take their academy very seriously because of Beckham's experiences. I think he'll be very front and center with making sure their academy is competitive. But Miami's also going to go out and spend. So we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Tafka says, front office personnel playing on the reserve team? Ha, ha, ha. Pronunciation question for you. For Venezuelan names, is the J pronounced as Ya or as English Ja?
It depends on the person. I don't think there's always a specific, but in Venezuela, they have always pronounced Joseph as Joseph. The only people that I've heard call him Joseph, actually, I think one of them has been Andrew Carlton. He's one that I've always heard say that. But I've never heard on a Venezuelan call of a Venezuelan national team game anything other than Joseph. But it depends. I mean, I don't even know if you go country by country with some of that because it could be some of their family heritage, what have you. Is he looking at somebody in particular?
Don't know. It was just an open-ended question.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that for sure, but I've always heard in terms of Joseph, for example, Joseph. Monteflo said this person by person. That's what I thought. So in the case of, maybe we're going back to Soteldo, which is a Y first name. I have always heard it Jefferson.
All right, that is the last Academy question that we have on the Twitters. We've got a couple of other topics. What else is on your mind?
Well, we got a bunch of games, so we don't have time, John. We got a whole slate of games in MLS to talk about. We got fantasy to talk about. We got juice boxes to talk about, and we got Mike Conti joining us in 22 minutes. So this is going to be fast on the schedule. Do you have the juice boxes ready to go?
I have the juice boxes ready to go.
All right, let's see how this goes. 7:30, Montreal hosting New England. New England is a road favorite.
In the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal, minus 111. Montreal, a plus 264, and your draw basically is a plus 300.
Man, I have no idea how to feel about Montreal. No idea how to feel about Montreal. Alex Piscine says, I think that the Venezuelans are trying to battle the Cubans for odd hybrid names. Maybe so. That's an appealing. It's not really a Montreal home game. It kind of is. That's why I'm not going to go anywhere near it. I could see Montreal winning. I absolutely could. But I'm not touching it. No, I can't justify anything. Cincinnati is a big home underdog against Columbus.
Basically a plus 300. Columbus is a minus 102, and your draw is a plus 240.
I have no faith in Cincinnati at all. Columbus, pair it with whatever you want to pair it with.
Yep.
Orlando hosting NYC. It's a toss-up.
Yeah. Orlando City plus 163. NYC a plus 150. And your draw is a plus 267.
Orlando wins it at home. Toronto hosting the Red Bulls. And Toronto is a big favorite in Connecticut.
Minus 101. Red Bulls plus 262. And your draw plus 265.
Draw. I think the Red Bulls make it difficult for Toronto, and the games start to pile up a little bit for Toronto. I'll go draw. DC hosting Philadelphia. DC is a even bigger home dog.
than FC Cincinnati.
Yes.
North End to plus 300. Philadelphia is a minus 112, and your draw's a plus 263.
Yeah, we were talking about home dog. Cincinnati was the last home dog we talked about, so that's why I said they're an even bigger home dog.
Even bigger.
Yes, they are. And they're playing Philadelphia, and Philadelphia should wipe the floor with DC. Yeah. No, we're not going 3 hours down here, Mazzano. Don't even talk about it. I got a game tonight.
No, we can't do. Yeah, we can't do that. You've got other stuff, and I got high school football.
Yeah. Anyway, Houston hosting Nashville. Houston is a fairly sizable favorite at home.
Minus 103. Nashville's a plus 290, and your draw's a plus 247.
I've been on the Nashville train for quite a while. The train's disappointing me a bit. I have started to be slightly skeptical of Nashville in front of goal and Nashville's big mistakes. Can they prove me wrong here with a draw? I think they can.
Yeah.
I think they can. I will take a somewhat stinky juice box and go Nashville draw on that one.
Yeah.
Captain Ragamuffin says, I don't like dogs, and Captain Ragamuffin, that is not acceptable around here. Even underdogs. We all like underdogs. Minnesota is hosting Chicago, and Minnesota is a decent favorite.
Plus 116. Chicago's a plus 217, and your draw's a plus 266.
Ooh. Chicago doesn't have Gaston Jimenez, and that's the one that could be the problem for them, because I just don't know if they're quite deep enough to deal with that absence. I will go draw once again. Dallas hosting Sporting Kansas City. Kansas City's an underdog on the road.
FC Dallas is a plus 134, Sporting a plus 188, and your draw's a plus 259.
Katie Weaver wants to know when we're moving to Halloween candy instead of juice boxes. I'm going to go with next week on that one. And Jason Nix says, don't use that to hate on candy corn. I will fight you. I'll have my boxing gloves, Jason Nix. Don't worry. Real Salt Lake hosting Portland. And Portland is it's an attractive number.
I believe so. Plus 175. RSL's a plus 140, and your draw's a plus 266.
See, I'll go to BetMGM because they're even bigger. I think Portland there is plus 185. So I'm running with that one. Gio, don't let me down. Vancouver, in air quotes, hosting LAFC, and Vancouver is the biggest home underdog of the night.
Basically a plus 445 or a plus 450. LAFC's a minus 189, and your draw is basically a plus 360.
I can't talk myself into the Whitecaps on that one. I can talk myself into this one, though. LA Galaxy hosting San Jose. San Jose has a plus 310 attached to them on BetMGM.
And, yeah, it's a plus 301 in the composite. Your draw's a plus 307, and the Galaxy are a minus 127.
I don't trust the Galaxy enough. I don't trust San Jose either, but I don't trust the Galaxy enough to run away from that kind of number. San Jose's beaten them somewhat recently. I will go with the Quakes. So I've got a bunch of draws. My biggest underdog that I like tonight are the Quakes. Probably next would be Portland. The draw for Toronto Red Bulls was a bigger number than I expected. So if you want to get really wacky, San Jose, Portland, and a draw in Toronto and Red Bulls, and that would be a lot of juice boxes.
Breaking news sounder, please.
Ideas meal. Hold on. Where'd it go? There it is.
Martin Ziegler from The Times. The Premier League clubs have kicked Project Big Picture into the long grass and agreed instead to hold an urgent strategy review involving all 20 members, as well as making a new bailout offer to the EFL. Emergency meeting of the 20 clubs called after last weekend's announcement of the project's aim has effectively killed off the plan at birth, and then it goes behind a paywall.
Okay, this is not a surprise at all because you needed 14 votes and you probably only had 9 coming in because 9 teams would have gotten more say than the rest in the structure. So, not shocked. They need to bail out the EFL because nobody else is going to. I do not trust the UK government to do it. The Premier League has to take this on. They probably don't want to, but they need to do it because it's the right thing for the game. They need to stop the nonsense. they're not going to get as much. The EFL is not going to get as much because the big clubs aren't going to want to give up as much. That's just not going to happen. But they need to get something, because Sky Sports had an article this morning. 6 championship clubs have told Sky Sports if there's no financial bailout, they fear for the survival of their club. 8 also say they have or will have to make club staff redundant. One anonymous club told Sky Sports, our survival is absolutely reliant on a financial support package. There's only so much longer we can continue like this. Another one, who is obviously a recent relegated club, we can survive in the short and medium term due to player trading and parachute payments, but ultimately the club's finances are fundamentally supported by the return of fans. Without that in the medium to long term, our business model as a self-financed club no longer works. The culture secretary, Oliver Dowden, who needs to stop being a plonker and actually get something done here instead of tossing off little, insults and this and that. He needs to actually do his job. He did it for the museums and the parks and theaters, et cetera, et cetera. He needs to just stop saying, well, the Premier League has to do it. Well, the Premier League has to do it. Then get everybody together in a room and help manage this and be an arbitrator instead of just firing off stuff and trying to get your name in the papers. Oliver Dowden, plonker of the day. He has said, just to be clear, I've had the assurance from the EFL they would not allow clubs to go bust in the short run. That is not a government assurance. That is assurances I have received from the sport. Yeah, that's all well and good. You might want to back that up with something. And you might want to actually, again, try to help get something done instead of allowing the civil war to break out.
Yeah, according to the Times, there was also an agreement to put together a rescue package for the EFL with the offer including an option for the bailout funding only to go to the League One and League Two clubs. That, however, could still be vetoed by the championship clubs.
That came up a long time ago. We'll see if it happens again, but I doubt it will because the championship clubs aren't going to go for it. 2 championship clubs told the Sky Sports that their survival was not dependent on a bailout. Redundancies were not being considered, so 2 of 24. Others didn't comment. I would assume if all was good, they would have commented. You can defer payments until the end of the year. You can defer stadium rent until January right now, but somebody said that is just kicking the can further down the road, and each time we kick it, it gets bigger. 13 League Two clubs responded to a survey, and 85% of those said they were worried about their current financial situation. 92% were not satisfied with the government's efforts to get fans back in the stadiums. Earlier in the month on League One side, 100% felt that the Premier League should offer a bailout, and 100% felt that the government had not done enough to get fans back in the stadiums. Fans aren't getting back in the stadiums. These clubs are going to have money to survive. The stakeholders need to come together and make sure that happens. And they can work towards whatever long-term relationship they're going to have. Don't block short-term funding that will allow these clubs to survive over long-term nonsense. Yep. The long-term stuff does need to be talked about. There are things in this project that are good for the game. 100%. And they don't need to be thrown out just because some clubs' feelings are hurt. They need to get this sorted out in the short term immediately for clubs to survive, and in the long term so you don't get into this kind of situation again outside of a pandemic, because you had clubs who were already in financial trouble. And that's why the Premier League doesn't want to bail out the championship clubs, because they've put themselves in that spot. However, you could say that they've put themselves in that spot because of the way the Premier League parachute payments and things are structured, and they're trying to get back into the Premier League, and they overspend to try to do it, and then they ruin their clubs. All of it needs to be addressed. That's going to take some adults in the room. It's not going to take a bunch of people who are trying to get their name in the papers, get on TV with a soundbite, or be pithy. It's going to take adults, and hopefully people can start to act like adults.
Let's see. Where would you like to go next here in rapid fire?
We'll get into fantasy in just a second. Other bits of news from yesterday and including today. England, Ben Chilwell, Kieran Trippier are gone from the squad. Harry Kane is fit to start against Denmark in Nations League action today. CONMEBOL last night, Peru played really well against Brazil, but they ended up losing 4-2. Neymar overtook Ronaldo and moved into second place behind Pelé on the all-time goal-scoring list for Brazil. Mentioned Gaston Jimenez. He scored the game winner for Paraguay with 5 minutes left. Stoppage time penalty kick attempt taken by former NYC midfielder Yangel Herrera. for Venezuela. Paraguay makes the save. Paraguay gets a big 3 points on the road in qualifying. Ecuador with a huge 4-2 win. 2 late goals for Luis Suarez. For Uruguay, big win for Ecuador. El Mataflo is probably still celebrating this morning. Big performance for Ecuador. I really like that squad. And Argentina got a 2-1 win in Bolivia yesterday. It's the second time they've ever won in La Paz. They looked drunk at about 15 minutes into the game because of the altitude. They looked like they wanted to die about 60 minutes in. But they found a way to win, and then Lionel Messi wanted to fight everybody after the game, and he had some very naughty things to say.
Oh, my, yes, he did.
You don't know the context of those things, John. Those things are, yes, it's not just the direct translation of the words. You can go look for yourselves.
Yes.
It was highly celebrated by lots of people. Sergio Aguero was telling him to smack the baldy on Instagram, which was always fun. It was pretty rough. Lionel Messi wanted to brawl. He was scrappy. I liked it.
Yep.
The big win for Paraguay, the win for Argentina. Argentina is at the top of the South American qualifying table, and we will run through that really fast before we get into MLS Fantasy. Let me get those scores updated. The other one, Colombia, with a late goal from Falcao to get a point in Chile. That went 2-2, and that's all of the 5. Okay, so Brazil and Argentina. Sorry, Brazil. I apologize. Brazil is top of the table on goal differential. Argentina is next. They are both perfect with 2 wins. Colombia and Paraguay are on 4 points. They are in automatic qualification spots through 2 rounds. Ecuador is in the playoff spot in 5th right now over Uruguay on goal differential. Chile has a point. Peru has a point. Venezuela and Bolivia have both lost each of their matches so far. Have not heard if Bolivia's federation president has been arrested yet, and have not heard if anything has progressed with the manager, who has all kinds of claims against him as well. I'm not going to tell you what Messi said, Christopher Abel. Go to TIC. I think they have I know they've got the video, and they do have the... I don't remember how they did it. Who had it? Somebody had the translation. Eli Mangum of Copa 90. He had the translation on his account. So go find it. There you go. Alex Piscine. Big misunderstanding. The Argentines are just really into mollusks, particularly conch. Totally. It's no big deal, Piscine. No big deal. It's all good. Something like that. Anyway. Lionel Messi wanted to brawl. That's all I know. And the Argentine television after everything was hilarious. Lionel Scaloni was a manager that people wanted to be gone before the game. I think our friend Gustavo still wants him to be gone, but they were celebrating him in a big way last night. It was fun to watch. So Argentina and Brazil are in a good spot. They get a good start to qualifying. Okay, and go look that up. And Chris, you might want to ask Piscine for updates here on what was said. And Ricky, you might want to ask Piscine what was said. And Piscine, you're going to have to explain it to everybody. I'm not going to do that today. All right. We're going to get into MLS Fantasy right now. We're not going to insult anybody like Lionel Messi did. At least not yet. We might later, but not yet. Now I'm trying to load up my team, and of course, MLS Fantasy wants to be difficult like it does sometimes where it doesn't want to actually log in.
Yes.
Which makes no sense.
I know.
It's about like their standings page that doesn't want to update with the standings and gives you incorrect standings, which is really bad.
Yes.
So I'm going to try again. This shouldn't be this hard. And let's see. There we go. Finally. And I need to make changes to my team because I am over the salary limit. All right. Lots of games tonight. We do know that there are some teams with questions about games this week. I know you want a disco discussion. I would assume we're going to talk to Mike about it, Sean. Just Relax. Trying to save the good stuff for hour number 2, my friend. That's not the third hour. It's the second hour, people. All right. MLS Fantasy goalkeeper. Who you got?
Stephen Fry.
Why do you have Stephen Fry?
Against San Jose.
San Jose scored some goals, though.
I also have Brian Rowe on my roster.
I don't care who you have on your roster. I'm talking about your starting lineup. Your roster doesn't mean anything. You haven't convinced me. I had Joe Willis, and he turned expensive, and they're playing Houston.
Yes.
I'm not really convinced by that one. Matt Turner's gotten very expensive. I don't like that one either. Ricky Ricardo, who you got? I need your goalkeeper. I look over, and I got your midfield. You got Quentin Westberg. That's not bad. He's cheaper, too. I think I trust Ricky Ricardo more than you, John.
Maybe McCarthy going up against Montreal?
No, I like Tim Melia, actually, against either Dallas or Chicago, and he's cheapest. Tim Melia gets the start for me. All right, defenders. Who you got?
McKenzie.
Okay.
Valenzuela.
Okay.
For the Cincinnati game.
Uh-huh.
Brooks Lennon.
Uh-huh.
And Segura going up against Vancouver.
Oh, yeah, you play a bunkering 4-5-1, which makes no sense in fantasy. I have, right now, Brooks Lennon, Roman Metanire, and Kessler from New England. Ricky has Metanire, Offal, and Segura. I kind of like what I have. I still need to shave $1.5 million, though. I don't think I'm going to shave it on my back line just yet. I kind of like that. I'm going to roll with that right now. All right, midfield. Who you got?
I've got to make some changes, but as of right now, I've got Atuesta going up against Vancouver, Pozuelo, Captain Ladero, and Caden Clark. I'm going with the hot hand.
Oh, so you're going to 4-3-3 here. And you're going with Caden Clark. Okay. Ricky's got Pozuelo, Santos, Reynoso, Tajori Shradi. Right now, I have Lodero, which is very expensive. Fabian Herbers. Yeah. It's hard to get Lodero and Pozuelo. Fabian Herbers, Diego Valeri, Christian Espinoza. Espinoza's got the Galaxy, which I kind of like. He's got Seattle, which I don't like. Valeri has been really good for me lately. Lodero gets San Jose on short rest. You don't get the Colorado game for Lodero. And Seattle will get rested because of that. So I'm going to stick with Lodero. I'm going to drop Herbers. And that gives me $9 million to work with. And let's see. Can I make this one work, or do I have to shave elsewhere? I could go Caden Clark. He's $6 million, but I'm not going to go based off of one game. Could go Lee Wynn, which he was actually really good for New England in that last game.
Yeah, that's Montreal.
I could go to Tajori Shradi and go with Ricky Ricardo on this one again. He's got Orlando and Columbus. I don't like the matchups, Ricky. I'm going to go with Lee Wynn.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go with Lee Wynn.
Yeah, because I could also have picked up Alvarado at 7.5.
All right. I'm going to go with Lee Wynn. I'm going with the veteran. And that'll give me a little more room here. So I've got a forward open. I've got $9 million to spend. I've got Baric and Zardes as my other two. Who do you have up top?
Still Jordan Morris.
Oh, yeah, you just have one. Wait, what else did you have in the midfield then?
Well, it was.
I thought you just said three.
Well, it's Lee Wynn, Atuesta, Pozuelo, Caden Clark, and a Captain Ladero. It's a 4-5-1.
Okay. All right. Ricky Ricardo's got Pavone, Zardes, and BWP up top.
Yeah. Although I also still have a Danny Masovsky on my roster, and he was huge for me last week.
He's a Danny Masovsky. He's a person, John. He was player of the week, actually. So show some proper respect for him.
So then I have the Danny Masovsky.
Yeah, that's better. You don't have a Danny Masovsky. He was player of the week, man.
So depending on who plays, like I said, I've got Masovsky and Wynn, Atuesta, Pozuelo, Caden Clark, and Ladero in the midfield, and forward for Masovsky. So we'll see.
Okay. I'm gonna have to think.
Are you on the pro rel? Are you in the?
No, I'm not in the pro rel. I am. What did I do last week in the other league? I was 12th for the week. I was good for the week.
23rd overall at 706 points.
Yeah, those first 2 weeks, I'm still climbing out of it, but I've been putting up some top 20 and top 15 performances lately, so that's been good.
Yep.
You were better last week, though, I think.
Yeah, 102 points. I'm 11th overall, but like I said, I think Musovsky and captaining Lauderdale gave me 26 points in both games, so either game would have helped me there. But yeah, 26 from Lauderdale, 15 from Musovsky. That really helped out last week.
Well, very nice.
And in addition to that, I'm going to jinx the ever-living hell out of myself by saying this.
Do it.
But, in the Pro Rel League, number one.
Oh, well, look at John.
In the table, number one in the Pro Rel League.
I'm just glad you don't have Alexander Matrica on your team.
I had Martinez from Philly, but then he was sent to international play. So,
Okay.
Actually, I remembered that one.
Good. Stop stalling. You got to talk about Steve Apolinsky right now.
Apolinsky and Associates LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network, wrongful death and serious injury attorneys. If this is a discussion that you need to have, you can have it with Apolinsky and Associates LLC. How do you have it, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. A couple different ways. You can shoot Steve an email directly, steve at aa-legal.com. You can get a free consultation by picking up the telephone or your cell or your landline, 404-377-9191. Give him a buzz, and he'll answer that way. Or, if you like to do things through the World Wide Web, the website aa-legal.com, large device or small, enter, advance, return. When that screen pops up, their homepage, pop-up window pops up, because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up. You can have a conversation with the individual at the other end of that pop-up window right then and there, 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine, being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia for wrongful death and serious injury matters. It's Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. The website is aa-legal.com.
Thought you were going to make a Netscape reference during that at one point.
CompuServe.
Yeah, something like that. Netscape was too fancy for you.
It took me forever to figure out how to activate the dragon behind the Netscape logo. Everybody said, yeah, if you do that, you can activate a dragon. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
And so when you click on the Netscape logo, then the dragon would come up from behind the N, and it would be all kinds of intimidating and everything.
Mm-hmm. Mike, did you use Netscape back in the day?
Oh, I sure did. Absolutely. Netscape was that was like the fastest one of all back in the late 90s. It seemed. It felt like. Yeah,
it was. I had the very bad dorm internet at the University of Georgia when I first got acclimated to Netscape, and it was so bad, and everything was so slow then anyway. You had to turn the images off to get anything to load. So if you just needed information, it's like, all right, I'm going to turn the images off. I got a bunch of blank X's while I'm trying to get this encyclopedia thing to load.
Yeah, I'm trying to what was it called? Encarta, the Microsoft encyclopedia.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember. I think Netscape was like the mandatory Penn State web browser as well. Now we had. I think you're a tad bit older than me, Jason. Not by much. We had hardwired Ethernet in our dorms in 1999. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
UGA might have had that by then. I was 95 when I first went into the dorms.
Oh, heck, in 95, you were probably still on dial-up modems then.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I remember, that was such a big deal because, you're living at home when you're in high school, you're doing dial-up, AOL, and in my case, it had Prodigy for a long time. And the web browsers, by the way, in AOL and Prodigy were just god-awful. So you go from dial-up, and then you move into the dorms, and you're like, wait a minute, it only takes about 4 or 5 minutes to download a song now? This is awesome. Wait a minute. Now, it only takes about 30 to 45 seconds to load ESPNnet.sportzone.com.
Oh, yeah.
Like, wow, the future is now. So it is kind of amazing how far we've come in that regard in 20 years. But yeah, Netscape was my browser. Alta Vista was my search engine.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Because, it took me a long time to catch on to Google. I didn't really catch on to Google until the news director at the radio station I was working at was kind of urging me to use it. But I don't think that was until like 2002, 2003. So I was using a lot of Alta Vista. I was using Yahoo as a search engine.
Used a lot of Yahoo.
Yahoo was kind of the OG of search engines.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one. Ask Jeeves. I would do Ask Jeeves a lot.
I didn't do that one.
I'd get drunk on like Friday and Saturday nights when I was in college and ask Jeeves all kinds of profane questions.
Those are always fun.
Yeah.
Ask.com and Ask Jeeves and
all the youngsters in the Twitch pitch are losing their minds right about now.
Well, it's amazing. I was thinking about this with the Braves too. Like the Braves are 2 wins away from the World Series. There's probably a large group of people listening to us right now who are old enough to vote, buy lottery tickets and cigarettes, serve in the military, and in some cases old enough to drink, who weren't even alive the last time the Braves made the World Series. Mm-hmm. For those of us who grew up in the 1990s, like the Braves being in the playoffs was just assumed every year. And if they didn't win the World Series, it was a disappointment. So, some of you youngins here can't relate to, what we had to go through. If
you had Tom Glavine, you got to get to Tom Glavine early, get him in that first inning.
Exactly. I mean, I was a Phillies fan during all that, obviously, growing up in Philadelphia. So, for me, it was kind of like, oh, great. Braves are on TBS again. Wonderful. They're probably going to win again. Wonderful. This is great. They're probably going to be in the playoffs again. If you weren't a Braves fan, you actually got bored of it. But, it's funny thinking back now. Like, now, if the internet goes out at my house for like 30 seconds.
Oh, my God.
I'm a mess.
Oh, my God.
It used to take 30 seconds just to load yahoo.com.
Yeah.
See?
Everything has changed. One thing that hasn't changed are Atlanta sports fans freaking out. Katie Weaver wanted me to ask you about your mentions yesterday.
Yeah, I got to get off Twitter. I'm not having fun with it anymore. Seriously, like I share, it's ridiculous. I share an observation that and at the time I shared it, it was true. Like, wow, these games haven't really been all that stressful. Like, and really think about it. I mean, outside of a couple late innings on Monday, and maybe a little bit of game 1 against the Marlins and the extra innings against Cincinnati, like for as many innings as they've played, most of them have been very, very low stress innings. I don't think that's untrue. Well, you're jinxing them. Why would you say such a thing? Rabble. It's a jinx. Rabble. Like, no, it's an observation. I'm not trying to jinx anything. And then I had people like actually in all caps threatening me if they would lose.
Yeah, because that all caps means that much more when you're being threatened.
Like, what are you going to do? Okay, tough guy. Like, what are you going to do? It's just like, honestly, like I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not. There's just no civility anymore on social media. There's just no civility. There's no discourse. Like, I love, and this gets back to an Atlanta United thing, about what happened on Saturday with the Caden Clark goal. And here I'm posting screen caps and, screen caps of IFAB laws, screen caps of the goal, screen caps of BWP's goal. I'm doing all this. I'm doing all this research. I'm explaining. I'm kind of repeating what Jason and I talked about on the full-time report. I'm talking about, what Doug asked the referee afterwards because he was the pool reporter. I'm just putting all this information out, and I come back to the word discourse. There's this Red Bulls fan that suddenly gets into my mentions.
No, those are always fun.
About, well, the 3 or 4 senior level referees that I talked to said this, and anyone who's taken a referee course says that. And then he starts calling me names. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, this started a discourse on the laws of the game. Like, there is no discourse when you call names, when you name call. There is no discourse. So and look, I mean, it comes with the territory when we do what we do, and I guess we're members of the media with lots of followers, but there's just no humor or civility anymore on Twitter. It's getting really tiresome. It's getting really, really annoying. And I know a lot of people are on edge because of what's going on in this country right now, and I'm on edge too. I think we're all on edge. If you're a human, you would be on edge. But good Lord, I mean, I thought the Braves were playing really well. Shame on me for saying that out loud, I guess.
That's the thing.
Can't win anymore.
They were playing really, really well, and they did end up winning, but they were playing really, really well when you traded it.
Okay, Ozzie Albies being unable to field a routine ground ball, or someone serving up an absolute meatball to Max Muncy. It has nothing to do with some radio guy sending out a tweet in his living room. Okay?
I guess somebody did that for Pittsburgh in '92 when they blew it. Because somebody said something somewhere.
Someone went on Netscape and
they went on CompuServe.
To university message board, and next thing you know, Barry Bonds can't throw out Sid Bream from deep short. It doesn't make sense to me. But whatever, it comes with the territory. It cracked me up on Saturday night how suddenly all of these high level referees who've taken all these courses on refereeing, come out of their rat holes on Twitter and start lecturing everyone on what the actual laws of the game are. And that, by the way, is on both sides. It just, and then I got really bothered, and I'm sorry to kind of ramble here, guys.
No, it's all good.
That, as you know, and we're going to talk about the disciplinary committee, I'm sure, in a second. But then I got really bothered with that. You make the call, Cheez-Its video that the league puts out, and Charlie Davies is making this huge point about line of sight. That is a red herring. Okay, the line of sight part is a red herring. That's not the issue on the Kane and Clark goal. You could argue that Brad's line of sight was not obstructed. That's not the problem. It was Daniel Royer creating an action that interfered with the way that Brad Guzan was going to play the shot. That's what it is. So, if we're going to have fun and do videos and one of them even said, you don't want to rip off a 17-year-old who scored his first career goal. It's not a rip off.
That has nothing to do with it.
That better have nothing to do with it. It's just, if we want to create videos and explain why the goal wasn't ruled out, at least let's apply the correct aspects of the offside law and not dwell on this line of sight issue, which is not the correct thing. It's not the issue.
All right.
So about that.
No. Hold that thought. I am going to put a timer on this because I don't want to be yelling about the disciplinary committee for more time than they deserve. They get 5 minutes. They get 5 minutes. They get 5 minutes. That'll give us plenty of time to talk about tonight because this is a big game. So, 5 minutes on the disciplinary committee's announcement yesterday.
First of all, correct. Atlanta United and Red Bull should have gotten warnings for mass confrontation.
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, we all agree on that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't even have a problem with the fine to Jeff and Shatkowski. Okay.
Yeah.
They shoved each other. It escalated the mass confrontation. No big deal. Now, the disciplinary committee wants to take a hard line all of a sudden on contact to the face and neck area. Well, that's great. And Franco Escobar, I guess, got fined because of, I don't know. I didn't even see it. I guess he put his hands on it.
It was at the back of the pile. And
there was a massive flop, unless Franco Escobar has a Vulcan death grip.
Yeah. That feels incredibly nitpicky to me.
Mm-hmm.
But Franco does have priors, and that does, it says right in the rules, the disciplinary committee does factor in priors when making ruling. Now, I would also point out Franco has never been sent off from a match. I mean, he's been given a retroactive red, but he's never been sent off in a match. He has accumulated a lot of yellows. He does have priors, whatever. But again, was anyone going to get hurt was anyone going to get hurt in that mass confrontation on Saturday? And in particular, was anyone going to get hurt when Franco, I guess, laid hands on the back of someone's neck to kind of pull them away from whatever that entanglement was?
They might have hurt themselves by falling down so fast.
Okay, yes. Sure. Yeah. When I get out of bed and I decide to do a cannonball on my bedroom floor, there's a chance I might get hurt.
Yeah, nobody's giving a red card to Fred either.
No. But that's a decision I make. I decide, I'm going to do a swan dive out of bed in the morning. All right. So we're going to get concerned about contact to the head and neck area when someone's not going to get hurt. But when someone is in a position where they can look behind their shoulder, notice, there's John Gallagher's head, and then take his elbow, line up John Gallagher's head, cock back, and throw the elbow, striking John Gallagher either with the elbow or the forearm in the head.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It wasn't during a mass confrontation. It wasn't someone leaving the pitch too slowly after a send-off. It wasn't someone running onto the pitch to celebrate a goal. Those are the things we're worried about as the disciplinary committee. Not that. Not something that is a player safety issue.
And I guess it's just hands to the face, not boots to the face or head or neck area.
Yes. It's gotten laughable now. It's almost like the league and the disciplinary committee would be better off not publicizing their decision. Because it's become a total joke now. And look, Atlanta United fan, Red Bull fan, Miami fan, DC fan, however you look at it, it's become a joke. The disciplinary committee is in place as a forum to hold players accountable for not respecting player safety issues. They're not doing their jobs when they're breaking down tape of a Vancouver player who was incorrectly sent off, took him to get off the pitch, rescinding his red, and then still fining him. That's not a player safety issue. Do your job. When Yamil Assad horror tackles Brooks Lennon, could have chopped his ankle in such a way that he could have broken his ankle. Not only are we not going to give him a retroactive red, we're not even going to fine him. It doesn't make sense. We're worried about the wrong things. So, again, let me be crystal clear. 5 minutes are up. I know.
Almost.
The mass confrontation thing, correct. Warn both teams. Fine the people involved. Yes, that's fine. But then take action when you see Luis Figal do what he did. Oh, and by the way, not publicized by Pro, but told to us on the record, is that Pro did admit, we had an oopsie. We had an oopsie there. Figal should have been sent off for that. They said that to the club. Not publicized by Pro. They're not going to publicly review.
I wonder why they didn't publicize that one. That's weird.
That is weird. But that's another oopsie. Yeah. Okay? And I don't know. The one that really, really still bothers me just immensely is the Assad thing.
Yeah.
Because there is no way you can objectively look at that and say that's not a red card.
Yeah.
What's the disciplinary committee doing that? That could, honestly, if you would have given Yamil multiple games for that, I would have had no problem with it. Because it was a clear, premeditated intent to injure situation. Time is up. Thank you.
And Shatkovsky kicks Jeff Lorenowitz twice on the ankle.
He got fined.
And Tom Barlow got nothing.
Well, Barlow was standing up for his teammate. I'm not worried about how the mass confrontation was handled, John. I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about if you're going to be hardcore on that, you got to be hardcore on everything else.
I would love if Pro is not admitting mistakes to the disciplinary committee to allow them to rule on some of these things, like the Figal one, even though they admitted the mistake to the club. Then if that's the case, and I would have assumed they would have admitted the mistake to the disciplinary committee, then the disciplinary committee did not vote unanimously to suspend Figal, which they're not doing their jobs. They're not doing their jobs, flat out.
I would agree.
There's no explanation of it. And the Yamil Assad one, there's no explanation for how that's not a red card. There's so many inexplicable things that they're doing, and now it feels like they're trying to provoke reactions from stuff, and
Almost.
it's just...
That's why I said don't even publicize what you're doing now. It's gotten to that point now. They've almost become a parody of themselves.
It's got to stop, and we'll see if anything else happens this week. It probably will.
Yeah.
Miami and Atlanta. The reason why I say it probably will, these are two teams that are among the league leaders in fouls and being fouled.
Yeah. First and second in fouls committed, I think, now.
Atlanta's not in fouls committed. I think they're like seventh. In fouls suffered, they're first and second. Miami's actually been fouled more than Atlanta now. So this is going to be contentious tonight.
Yeah, and Atlanta is climbing up the fouls committed chart pretty quickly. They have embraced the dark arts of tactical fouling a lot in recent matches.
I like it.
So, yeah, absolutely it's going to be chippy. 100%. I mean, the three matches these teams have played have been incredibly chippy. And I think Atlanta United's been very frustrated at times in these matches. I think Inter Miami has been very frustrated at times in these matches. I think we saw Inter Miami's frustration boil over at the end of the scoreless draw here in Atlanta. So, look, here's the situation. As much as the players and the technical staff probably don't want to talk openly about it, this is an incredibly important match for both teams. I think more so for Miami because of their remaining schedule and because they're still 1 point behind Atlanta right now. But it's a big one for Atlanta United, too. It's a huge one for Atlanta United. You're going to play the Supporter Shield leaders on the road Sunday. You cannot realistically expect to get a whole lot out of that. You hope you do, but you can't expect it. You got to play at Orlando again on the road. You got to play at Columbus again on the road. So I think you're looking at, if you want to lock down that you're going to the playoffs, I'd feel really, really good with 9 or 10 points in your remaining 6 matches. Mm-hmm. That's what, about 1.5 points per match. That should get you there. So tonight, in my opinion, is a must-get 3 because you can't assume you're going to get 3 at Orlando, Columbus, or Toronto. Yep. And I think you can get 3 tonight. Miami, their remaining schedule, they're running out of opportunity. And, by the way, another tricky part to all this, I think that some people have forgotten is Nashville still has a game in hand, mm-hmm. Which is that could be really, really scary down the stretch. But Inter Miami, after tonight, Montreal, I guess at Red Bull Arena or wherever Montreal's playing, Orlando, Dallas, Toronto, Cincinnati on decision day. Okay. So all of those teams other than Cincinnati are ahead of them in points right now, including tonight. They're in 11th now, 1 point below the line. Huge opportunity for them. So I think both teams are going to play tonight like it's a cup final. And I think as far as the way that Glassy is going to set up the team for tonight, and I think one of the reasons why Marcelino Moreno came out at 60 minutes on Saturday is you've got to go all in for your points tonight. And I think he will be selecting absolutely as first choice as he possibly can go. And I think he's going to hope very hard that Marcelino Moreno can give him 90 tonight. And then whatever you got Sunday night in Hartford's gravy. That's the way I look at it.
That's important. I think I'm really glad you said that because you hate to be in this spot where you have to start looking at it that way, but you do.
But you are.
Yeah. This is a more winnable game. You've got to be full strength tonight.
So, and remember, Miami now, again, it shouldn't matter, but they don't have Pizarro. Mm-hmm. They do have Gonzalo Higuain. It's amazing. Pizarro's out. We'll just put Gonzalo Higuain in. It's crazy. But, Pizarro has asked a lot of questions of Atlanta United this year and has caused them problems. I would be shocked if Rex Shea was not in their starting lineup tonight. He's killed Atlanta United this year.
I think they fielded their best team right now on the weekend, what they can do, and they changed it. They played a 3-4-2-1 on the weekend, which we hadn't seen them play 3 center backs in a while it freed up Pellegrini and Morgan to kind of be in free, sometimes wide, sometimes tucked in roles in those attacking spots behind Gonzalo Higuain. Now, you do have Federico Higuain into the group now, and he's supposed to be available tonight. He's trained with the team already. Does he come in some ways to replace Pizarro as that playmaker, and you go to a true two up top, go back to Carranza? Does Morgan go up top? Like, I think out wide, if it's Breck Shea, who has hurt you going forward, you can get in behind him, and Brooks Lennon should really enjoy that challenge. If it's, whoever they put on that right side, if it's Nealis, who was there on the weekend, Nealis is awful against the dribble. He's good in the air. He's awful against the dribble. George Bello, John Gallagher, Marcelino Moreno drifting over to the left, which is where he likes to drift. He goes left more than he goes right. You're going to have 1v1 opportunities. If you win your 1v1s wide, you can pull that 3 apart. And you want LGP and Figal defending out in space because they'll struggle.
Yes, agree with all of that. And I also thought Glassy may have tipped his hand a little bit yesterday, unless he did this on purpose. And, I don't want to put anything past Glassy because he's a little cagey and superstitious in this regard. But it sure sounded like Franco Escobar at center back is going to continue. Mm-hmm. Now, he said that in answering a question about Fernando Mesa's status, so maybe I'm overthinking this a little bit, but I really like, and we talked about this before Saturday's match against Red Bulls, I really like the possibility of Lennon right wing back, Dom right wing, running at Breck Shea. And remember the moments of frustration that Jurgen Damm created in that scoreless draw against Bayern. In fact, I think he even had to play the drew yellow card very late in that match and in the far corner. So I'm with you, Jason, 100%. And then down the left, Bello and maybe it's Gallagher with John coming back into the team. And Marcelino Moreno kind of playing the role of the 10. And I'm not saying Jake Mulroney has played himself out. I think that's the best look. That's the first choice right now. If you can get Gallagher and Moreno kind of going down the left center, and hopefully you can get John on the end of something if he's in the match tonight. Of course, you could also play Gallagher as the striker. You now all of a sudden have Kubo Torres way ahead of schedule, maybe coming back into the team tonight. I can't imagine a situation where he would start, but he might be available free off the bench. So you're going to have some options. But I'm totally with you. I mean, this is an opportunity, Jason, for Atlanta United to try to exploit. If there is a weakness on Miami, it would be down the channels. I think we have seen Atlanta United trying to play down the middle against Inter Miami has not worked very well this year, at least so far.
So what'd you think about Marcelino Moreno and his hello, my name is name tag moments on Saturday, basically introducing himself out there on the fly?
Loved it. I thought it was great. And hopefully 1 or 2 days of training with his team will just help to build a little bit of continuity. I think realistically, we went into the match Saturday thinking, okay, Marcelino Moreno is going to have some individual moments, but he's probably not going to be as connected with the rest of the team, and you're going to assume that there are going to be mistakes. Honestly, there really wasn't a whole lot of that. So I'm encouraged. He was involved in not necessarily shot-creating actions. I thought he was involved in chance-creating actions, which was really, really good to see. The only critique I would have had is that the 17-year-old picked his pocket once or twice. Again, no one's perfect, but I thought in general, very, very encouraging. You can see his quality pretty much straight away. I think he's going to be a problem for the rest of the league, but he's still got to build some chemistry and some cohesion with his teammates. Hopefully tonight's a really good opportunity for him to do that. I don't know. But so far the early returns are very, very encouraging on him, I think.
All right, we got to save some of the good stuff for 2 o'clock. We got stoppage time coming up.
Yes, back at our normal time, 2 o'clock. And we're on the air officially at 7:30, but really Jason and I will be going on at 7 tonight on 92.9 The Game.
You get like bonus under the radar 7 o'clock to 7:30. Things can get crazy in that 30-minute sequence.
Yeah, we can really talk about whatever we want. Heck,
Netscape.
we might even talk about the Braves game.
Braves.
Netscape, Prodigy, people being jerks on social media.
Tevin Campbell. Whatever we got to get into.
Tevin Campbell, stop. I heard
that. See you in a little bit, Mike.
Okay, guys, take care.
You good?
All right. 2 o'clock, facebook.com/929 The Game. 7 o'clock on air, 7:30 the official pregame starts. Somebody who will be writing about the match tonight is Doug Robertson of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and it's sunny outside, so he might be on a golf course. That is possible, as John mutes himself to bang on his keyboard because he cannot type quietly. I don't know why that is. That's really weird.
Nope.
It's very
Can't
strange.
Type quietly. Not happening.
Doug, do you type quietly or do you bang on your keyboard? Doug said he joined. There he is, I think. What's up, Doug?
How are you?
Good. Do you bang on your keyboard or do you type quietly? Doug doesn't want to answer. I think we might have lost Doug
I'm
again.
a quiet typer.
You're a quiet typer. There we go. Okay, I am too. John is definitely not. Maybe it's the old school typewriters that John had when he learned. Is that it, John?
A movable type, actually, was that when I started.
Yeah, you got to really slam that thing down, right?
Yes.
A guy I used to work with, David Teal, one of the best sports writers in the country. He now works for the Richmond Times-Dispatch, but at the time he worked for the Newport News Daily Press, where I was sports editor. He just absolutely obliterates a keyboard.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a hunting pecker, which made it all the more just interesting to me.
I wouldn't think that would be
as many words as he has and write them as well as he does. He can do whatever he wants to, in my opinion.
Wow. All right. We've had a lot of throwbacks today. We were talking old school web browsers earlier, so I just wanted to get your typewriter preferences. Yeah, it happens. Sometimes things get weird. It's going to be a weird night tonight with Atlanta and Miami. I mean, this is a huge game. We talked about it on Southern Fried Soccer. When you really dig into the schedule remaining for both of these teams, outside of the ones where you're playing weak teams, these teams have a lot of difficult matchups coming up. This is the most winnable of the other games for both teams tonight.
With the exception of DC United.
Yeah, DC and Cincinnati will put off to the side. Like for Atlanta, this is the next most winnable game. For Miami, they've got a lot of tough games too. Like 3 points here are critical for both.
Yeah, very, very much so. And, I mean, in addition to the 3 points, to me, this game, or not the result, but more so the performance, is going to be a true indication of if those 3 games were kind of a blip or if it's sustainable for the remainder of the season. If Atlanta United falls back and starts doing some of the same stuff it was doing during that 6-game winless streak, then I think we'll get a kind of an idea that the previous 3 or 4 games were just kind of a blip, unfortunately. And it's got to be sustainable if they want to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and when you look at Atlanta United defensively, we kind of have that focus drawn to what we're seeing with Franco Escobar as a part of the center back pairing over the last handful of matches, and he seems, I don't know if calmer is the right word, but I think he's more focused and more locked in than Franco Escobar on the outside.
He's more controlled of himself, which I think after seeing film of himself, he probably realized I look like a crazy person running around out here, and I need to be better for my teammates and to stop getting myself into trouble with yellow cards and things like that. And to his credit, he's done it. And, I think Jason and I talked about on the Southern Fried Soccer podcast, he was, in my opinion, Atlanta United's man of the match in that last game. I don't see him coming out of the lineup, but I've been wrong about these things many, many times in the past. But we'll see about tonight. What'd
you think about Marcelino Moreno having a little bit of time to reflect? I mean, I think everybody understands just the situation he's in with no competitive games since the beginning of March. He's not going to be at his sharpest. He's not going to be match fit. He's physically fit, but not match fit.
Yeah.
Taking all that into account, what'd you think of his performance in his debut?
Well, I like to fall back on stats, and Moreno didn't really have any impactful stats. But having said that, I thought he played fantastically well, all things considered. No training with his teammates, nothing with his teammates, and to come in, and he fought. He fought for aerial duels. He fought for balls on the ground. He caused Red Bull some trouble with his dribbling and his vision and his skills. And I think as he gets some more playing time with his teammates and kind of figures out what they do and they kind of figure out what he does, you're going to see, I think, a pretty quality player. But, I mean, it was just the work on defense and the wanting to win balls, to me, was probably the most impressive thing.
On the verge of a double negative here for this next thought, can Atlanta United not afford to have Jeff Larentowicz not in the starting 11 for this match, considering what we've seen from him the last handful of matches?
I think we talked about this on the last pregame, but Jeff is a calming, guiding when he's on the field for Atlanta United, and you rarely see the defense disorganized when he's on the field. I think he gives confidence to the other team. Not that Eric Rometty doesn't, but his teammates seem to gain a bit of confidence when he's on the field. And I think that at this point, Jeff is just going to play for as long as he can. He said the Wednesday-Saturday turnaround is tougher than the Saturday-Wednesday turnaround. Yeah. So I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be on the field tonight.
Yeah, I think the question will just be how far can he go? That's where we're at this point. And when you look at the schedule, you hate to be in this spot where you're having to pick and choose in matches, but you're at Miami and then you're in Connecticut on the weekend in Hartford. Now, it is on Sunday, you get an extra day, but the Toronto match is far more difficult than the Miami match. I mean, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say just based off where they are in the table. 3 points tonight is more likely than 3 points on the weekend.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that you could see something like a Mo Adams coming back in tonight because he has fresh legs, and that would give Jeff a little bit of an opportunity to not have to run around maybe as much with Mo in there. But if you do that, then Heineman probably has to sit, and he's been playing pretty well.
He has.
If Marino is starting. That's the caveat, if Marino is starting. So that's the puzzle that Stephen Glass has to kind of figure out.
What's the updates on injuries as best as you can glean from press conference opportunities and things? I know we saw Kubo Torres on his Instagram back out there at practice. What else have you been able to glean when it comes to getting everybody back to close to 100%?
Hazetu is back training with the team, according to Stephen Glass. Barco did not train with the team on Monday. So based upon the previous games and Glass's previous comments, I'd be surprised if Barco even travels to Florida tonight or this morning, or if they haven't already left this afternoon with the team.
I think they just left, actually, about 20 minutes ago from Sports and Aviation on Twitter.
As that situation still remains murky, I think, at best. But everyone else seems to be, except for Edgar Castillo, who the team never even announced what was going on other than he's out. He's not going to play. He's not available for selection tonight.
When you look at Miami, they don't have Pizarro. He is away with Mexico. They changed things up a little bit in their formation. The previous match, they didn't have Leandro Gonzalez-Perez. When they get him back, they go into a 3 center back setup. Gonzalo Higuain, you get Federico Higuain into the team now. He's supposed to be available for tonight. Gonzalo's the obvious one that we would be like, oh, no, we have to worry about him because he's a proven goal scorer around the world. But who else on Miami worries you? Who else do you think can hurt Atlanta tonight?
They're wide players. If Ben Sweat is in, he worries me a little bit. I think is it Morgan on the other side?
Yeah, Morgan is the winger. Sweat could be the wing back, or if they go 4, he could be the left back.
Yeah, and Morgan worries me. I've always liked the 3-5-2 or 3-4-2-1 formation, more so than the 3-4-3 that Atlanta tried to play. I've often wondered why Atlanta United doesn't go back to that formation because the players seem to like it. So that's what worries me if I'm at Atlanta United. Those two wide players coming in and either cutting in or bombing crosses in for Higuain to try to he's not going to win a whole lot of those, but to jump on those second balls and get off a quick shot.
Yeah, Morgan's the one in the attack who does worry me. I think you can get behind him, but in the attack, he's a problem. He's definitely a problem. That was a great pickup.
Yeah.
And then you've got somebody like Breck Shea, who seems to be causing problems, whether it's on the dribble or with his fouling prowess. I'll just go ahead and phrase it that way. You're going up against Atlanta United. So, I mean, for me, if you're looking for that next level guy off of a Lewis Morgan type, I would look for a Breck Shea as well as a part of this. But that's just me.
Atlanta United supporters don't like Breck Shea. We talked about this. It's an unfair criticisms of him, I think. When he's back to being a midfielder, he's a quality player in Major League Soccer, and he scored that big header against Atlanta United at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He could be a handful because he's tall and he's fast. His defense is still a work in progress, but that's never really what he's been about. He's been about attacking, and he could cause Atlanta United trouble too.
Yeah, Breck's been playing really well when he got healthy. It took him a little bit longer to get into the mix this season, but he's coming off of that knee injury. He's been dangerous, and he gives you that element, especially with Morgan on the opposite side, of a winger who can crash the back post, and with his height, can be a tough matchup for a Brooks Lennon in this case, or an Anton Walks. Anybody's going to have problems with Breck Shea's height on crosses. He's a big boy.
Especially when he gets a full head of steam and he's coming in, because when he's running and jumping, even if you jump, he's going to knock you over.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to win those duels. So yeah, that's another problem he causes.
All right, let's get into some predictions. I think it's fair to say this could be the biggest game of the year. I mean, maybe it's bigger because of what happened on Saturday with Red Bulls. That was the previous biggest game of the year. This is got to be it at this point. It's one of the classic 6-point swings because both teams are fighting for the same spot. John, what do you think?
I went with the Velvet Driving Slipper Lock of the Week. I really did. Last night on the run-up, I said 2-1, so I'll stick with 2-1.
Is it the black driving slippers, or did you go with a different color for this one?
No. This is the black velvet
classic
driving slipper lock. Yeah, it's the classic look, so it's the black velvet driving slipper lock of the week. 2-1 Atlanta United.
Are you going to be wearing those watching the game tonight?
Yeah, unless I'm here in Office HD and I get tired of wearing them, and then I may take them off and then watch the game otherwise. But yes, they will be in attendance in one form or another.
All right, we'll see. We'll see if they bring you good luck. What do you think, Doug?
All right, my giant foam cowboy hat lock of the week is Atlanta United a 2-1 loser at Inter Miami.
You got 2-1 Miami. Close? Is it 1-1 and Miami finds a winner? Is it?
No,
what do you think?
I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
Okay. I went 2-2. I think both teams can concede here. I think it's going to be a little sloppy because of the tired legs. That's the weird thing about these midweek games is they can get sloppy and they can go either way. They can get sloppy and be high scoring. They can get sloppy and be low scoring. We've seen a lot of low scoring ones in these Wednesdays. These two teams with the need that I think both of them will be feeling will both be pushing forward. I just think it's going to be back and forth and some chaos. I think Miami gets a goal on a set piece. I think they get one through the run of play through Morgan. Morgan's the one who scares me the most in the attack. But I think Miami gets caught a couple of times because I don't trust them in a 3-back setup. I don't trust Figal as a center back in a line of 3 as the middle the middle one, and that's what he played on the weekend. I think you can get him out of position. You can get Leandro Gonzalez out of position in that, especially if it's Breck Shea as the wing back, as it was on Saturday. I think Atlanta can take advantage of that, and they'll have opportunities, and they'll have more of them. I think Moreno starts. I think he has to. He should be better. The only question is going to be the fitness. Beyond that, I think it's going to be a fight. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch in terms of the intensity because both teams know the stakes here. It's a huge match for both of them, and if there's a loser coming out of it, they're going to have to get really desperate with some tough games to pick up points on the way into the decision day matchups. What else do you have coming up at the AJC.com, Doug?
Nothing until the game.
You've already done it all.
So I'm looking forward to tonight's game. I think it's going to be an exciting game. But again, I think unfortunately on the road, Atlanta United is not going to be able to beat Miami, which has kind of been the case this year. It's
been tough, and it's going to be tough tonight. Miami, is better, obviously, with Higuain, with Matuidi. They're better than they were. They don't have Pizarro. We'll see how that goes out, but it's desperation time in some ways for Atlanta. I want to see how they respond. I want to see how they bounce back after the weekend.
They won their last 2 games without Pizarro, though, right?
They won one without Pizarro. Let me double check that. I want to make sure
they won 2 consecutive, right?
I don't know if they missed Pizarro in the first one without him.
I thought they did.
They might have. You might be right. Let me go back and look if I can pull it up real fast, and it's not going real fast. Of course, it's not going fast. Let's see. They won at Red Bulls. That's right. They won at Red Bulls. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I want to see if they play Federico Higuain. I want to see if they push him straight into the team. He would give them that playmaker that they miss a little bit with Pizarro. And I want to see how much they defend and counter because we've seen that from them. We've also seen them high press. I don't think they have the team to high press now with Higuain. We've seen them have possession. Houston gave them the possession, and they did okay with it on the weekend, which has not really been their MO this season. So I don't know what we get tonight. I'm intrigued because both managers could have some things up their sleeves.
All right.
All right. We'll be talking to you for Southern Fried Soccer tonight. I'll talk to you from the car in the parking lot. How about that?
All right, guys.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
Be good.
All right. Make sure you're following him, Doug Robertson, AJC, on Twitter, Atlanta United News Now on Facebook. Yes, I see it. Hold on. We have breaking news. Per Grant Wall, Weston McKennie is tested positive for COVID-19. Again, I mean, it's just going to happen. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it doesn't change if it's Weston McKennie or Cristiano Ronaldo or anybody. It's just going to happen right now because it's out there. I also don't think that means you can shut everything down and not do anything because I think that time has passed. It stinks. It is what it is. I mean, Ragamuffin, I'm kind of with you on that. Ragamuffin says, why is that breaking news? I'm kind of with you. It's not that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't care, but you're going to have plenty of players worldwide, and some of them will be U.S. men's national team players, and some of them will be MLS players, and some of them could be Atlanta United players. Atlanta's been really good with this since the MLS's back tournament, but you're going to have players and people test positive. And the good thing is most of them don't have symptoms, don't have serious symptoms. Most of them don't get seriously sick, but some do. And they're going to miss time while they're positive, while they're contagious. It seems like we're getting to a point now where it is pretty well understood, and we had this discussion with Boca and Libertad, and Boca was actually on the right side of it in terms of the amount of time you are contagious after you test positive. Boca argued that their players who were still testing positive after 2 weeks should be allowed to travel, and that was seen as accurate. The Minister of Health in Paraguay agreed, and that's been pretty consistent with the WHO and with the CDC. So, you can't avoid it. You're going to have players miss time for this. It's going to happen. I do start to wonder where that line is going to be on games being postponed because of it.
Yeah.
It's a different conversation in MLS than it is in the Serie A or the Bundesliga or the Premier League, for example, because they're at the beginning of their season. They've got time to make up games. MLS doesn't. They're out of time. And I don't know if you can find ways to play, like the Colorado situation, for example. I think Colorado handled it poorly.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure. This is my speculation on it. I want to make that clear. I think Colorado handled it poorly from the very beginning. I think they didn't do the right things to limit the spread. Right. And then they made another dumb decision at the end of it. The end of it before the public, the Department of Health got involved and shut it down. And I think the public, Department of Health shut it down because Colorado Rapids couldn't deal with it. And that's what took the rest of these games out of the picture. That's not an MLS thing. That's the public health side saying, well, obviously you can't handle this. And if they trained after a staff member tested positive, they don't get it. They don't get it. You're going to have people test positive. I just don't think there's any way around it. I don't know what Weston McKennie was doing. I don't know if he went to dinner. I don't know if he met somebody that didn't have a mask on. I don't know. I mean, it can happen that easily. Are the odds strong that it happens that easily? No, they're not. But the odds are there. These leagues, these teams, businesses, everybody's going to have to figure out how to deal because you're not going to have a vaccine tomorrow. You're not going to have a therapeutic that gets rid of it tomorrow. It's going to be contagious. You can't have players and staff members interacting with others while it's contagious. You have to solve that problem. You also have to have a plan of action for when you have positives because none of these leagues, none of these teams, none of these businesses can afford to shut down again. They can't. So how do you keep moving forward? That's what you have to do. And you have to be safe in doing it. That doesn't mean, everybody's going to catch it. Don't worry. Trust me, I'm not saying that. You have to be vigilant on protocols. You have to be vigilant on how you take care of yourself. These things are musts. But you also have to be realistic and understand that people will still catch it and test positive in one way or another. And it can't, in my opinion, because of the financials. I also don't think it shouldn't, if it's being handled correctly, shut a league down again. It has to be handled right. And the Colorado Rapids have put everybody at risk because of the way they've handled it, to the point that the local health department had to come in and shut them down. It's very frustrating. And Coach Steve, I want to make this clear, and we're on the same page here. I'm almost positive. I'm totally with you on the value of human life and all it means. I'm totally with all of that. I am not against that anyway, and I think you know that. I'm also understanding the point at here that if you have a full lockdown, yes, you can get rid of it, but that's not going to happen. I just think that time is past in the United States. I think it's past worldwide as well. I don't think anybody's going to go back and do a full lockdown. And that didn't completely eradicate it in Italy anyway, when they went into as much of a lockdown as we've seen. It still was there, and it bubbled back up. So then how do we deal and how do we be smart about it? That's where we have to be. We have to limit exposure to catching it. We have to limit risk, especially if we're in positions like a pro athlete would be, like a staff member of a pro team would be, where they're going to be interacting with other people. I'm like this, and I interact with, outside of the TV spot, 2 people in my workplace I interact with. I interact with Mike. I interact with our engineer, whether it's Miller or David. I interact with them in a booth. I am very careful because of them, and it's 2 people. If you're an athlete and you're working with a whole team, if you're a staff member and you're working with a whole team, you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful for the people around you. But even if you're careful, you can still catch it. I mean, that's just the hard thing here. I realistically don't think you can shut down, because I don't think these businesses, these teams, and I'm looking at the teams and leagues as businesses, I don't think they can survive it. I don't know. I don't know. I think we're getting better at things with it. I think people are also getting tired of having to deal with it and getting reckless in their individual behavior. The scientists, the doctors are learning more about it every day. I hope, because I think the therapeutics are probably more likely to come first. I hope they come fast, and I hope we have those available for people who need them and not just people who can afford them or have access to them. I hope that is something that becomes common. I hope we get a vaccine here at some point. But, yeah, we've still got to be careful with it, and we've still got to be smart with it, and we've just got to deal. It's tough, yeah. And, I mean, everything is looked at differently. I totally agree. We've all got to do our best. Look, I can't control who schedules what big event. I can't control what business owner is smart about how they open and how they're not. Those are things out of my control. I can control what I do. You guys can control what you do. Do the best you can for the people around you and yourself, and take care of yourself. That's all we got to do here. That's all we can do. So that's all we can focus on. I think at times it's maybe overplayed, like Weston McKennie has tested positive. I don't know if he has symptoms. I don't know if he's sick. Again, the majority, and we know this, and it's not to diminish it at all, but the majority of people who do test positive don't get sick. That's a good thing about this. They're still contagious, and they could spread it to somebody who could get sick, and that's why we have to be careful. They're not mutually exclusive, and that's where the conversation gets very frustrating about this. Weston McKennie hopefully is fine. Hopefully doesn't have any issues with it. Hopefully doesn't spread it to anybody in his team. Hopefully doesn't spread it to anybody in his family. Those are, like, he should be okay, and that's good, and we hope that he is. But we hope he doesn't spread it to somebody who isn't going to be okay. And that's an element, too. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to continue to happen, though, and it's just on these teams and leagues to handle it correctly and do what they can. And more importantly, it's on the individuals who are involved to do everything they can. No more stupid house parties, Sam Johnson. No more stupid actions like that. Wear your mask. Do your things that limit your risk to yourself and to others. Do what you can to handle this. That's what we got. We got each other.
Yep. A couple things on Twitter before wrapping up. Kevsey says, so help me, Brick Shea, if you come out and foul like the last two games without getting at least a yellow, I will never defend you again.
Breck Shea. What are people so angry with Breck Shea?
I don't know.
I mean,
Nathan Pugh.
he has had some fouls against Atlanta. That's true, but I didn't think any of them were like trying to hurt people fouls.
No, I think it was just the persistence of it.
There was definite persistence with it. I agree with that. I like Breck. I always liked Breck.
Yeah. Coming out of your CONMEBOL discussion.
Uh-huh.
Nathan Pugh says, I've hiked a 14er in Colorado less than 24 hours after arriving. I'm not sure how Argentina did it. I've never felt so awful, hungover, sore, nauseated, and dehydrated.
I mean, look, I put it into our private message group. 15 minutes in, they looked intoxicated. Like, you saw center backs kind of stumbling around. Because the other thing, too, outside of just the air, it's tough because the ball moves differently. Yeah. Crosses and long balls, they sail more. So you saw center backs for Argentina just misjudging crosses and stumbling around. It was crazy. By the end, you saw Messi trying to figure things out. And somebody tweeted it. You know, in La Paz, one of the greatest strikers of a soccer ball in the history of the game, Lionel Messi, didn't opt to go big time for a free kick. He tried to get a little sneaky with it and slip it under the wall and on the ground because he didn't trust being able to control it in the air. And then he wanted to fight everybody and said horrible things. So, you know, it's good times. He was frustrated. I like it. I like angry Messi.
Yes. Nick Brawley is all for getting a member of Pro on the show for a Q&A.
I'm going to let the temperature go down on everything with Pro for a while. Maybe we do that in the off season, and it's going to have to be somebody from leadership because I don't want to put a referee in that situation because they don't speak for the entire organization.
Right.
It's it's frustrating, and I do understand that referees get defensive because they get criticized sometimes completely incorrectly. But I don't think it is incorrect to say that the referees have had more issues this season than any in recent memory. And some of that's down to 2020 is hard for all of us. Some of that's down to the way the schedules are going, the way travel is going this year. There's mitigating circumstances here, absolutely. But they've had a rough time. It's not just Atlanta saying that. It's not just Atlanta fans saying that. They've had a difficult year. What I've noticed and what I'm not happy about, and I don't think does anything good for the refereeing community at the pro level or across the country, don't retreat into an echo chamber and get defensive. When there's a mistake, admit a mistake. When you admit a mistake privately but not publicly, like the Figal situation, that is a massive problem. I understand you might not want to admit a whole bunch of mistakes. I'd rather you do that, admit that you're human, admit that you made a mistake, work to make those decisions better, set precedents publicly, and improve. Period. Now it feels like anytime you say anything about a referee, there is an immediate, but no, but no, but no. For example, the situation this weekend. It is a judgment call. I disagree with the judgment. It's not the same as the Figal one to me. The Figal one, they missed it. They got it wrong. There's just no question. That's just wrong. The one this weekend is an absolute judgment call, and they have justification for the judgment they made. That's fine. I have no problem with that. I disagree with the judgment. We've discussed it. It is what it is. They have justification for the decision they made. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no need to get defensive about that. Explain why you feel like it is correct, and we have the discussion. Maybe over time, that precedent changes. Maybe the way that situation is ruled changes. I think it should. As we've said, it affects a goalkeeper. You have to play for the deflection. And if a player's in an offside position and can't deflect it, the goalkeeper doesn't know that, but they have to act differently. That's impacting the play. That's my opinion. It feels like this is kind of like a handball situation where they're trying to not make it a gray area, they're trying to make it black and white. And the black and whiteness of it is, was he in between the goalkeeper and the ball? Did he block the vision? He didn't? Okay, fine, then it's a goal. I think you need judgment because Daniel Royer affected Brad Gazan in the situation. And I've also said, and I'll continue to say, if that situation repeats itself, the goalkeeper has to dive into the player who's in the offside position. If that's the way it's going to be called, you got to draw the contact to make the referee make a decision. But that's a judgment call, and that's fine, and we can discuss judgment calls all day and interpretations and all that. That's fine. Don't get defensive about that. But when you miss a call like Nicolas Figal and Yamil Assad, admit you missed a call. Because players need to know, fans need to know that players are going to be protected and we're not going to have player safety become an issue. That's where I'm at with pro and with referees.
Last one on the board, and I will let everyone else dive in and post what they think as well. Joey Logan he says he's gone through about 4 different lineup and formation predictions. He does know that the key tonight is stopping the Higuains who are going to give the backline fits by interchanging as the 9 and the 10 if they play a 4-4-2. And so Joey has posted his starting 11. I invite everybody to post theirs.
They haven't played a 4-4-2, Joey. They went 3-4-2-1 in the last match. And the 2 portion with Morgan and Pellegrini could tuck in or could play out wide. We're not going 3 hours, Steve. We're not going 3 hours.
Can't do it.
John's got to run out the door here in a minute anyway. I don't think they go 4-4-2. I don't think Gonzalo drops in as a 10 very often. He'll drop in the build-up phase, which is a little different. He's been good in those phases of play for Miami so far. That's been important for them, especially without Pizarro. I don't know if they bring Federico into it. If they do, I think they go back to a 4-2-3-1, and Federico's your 10 behind Gonzalo Higuain, with Morgan on one side, with Pellegrini on the other, with Matuidi and either Ulloa or Trapp behind Federico Higuain. And then a back line. This is the question. Because Reyes is out. Mm-hmm. Robles is out, so you're back to McCarthy in goal, which is fine. McCarthy's a good goalkeeper. But without Reyes, if you want to bring Figal back into center back to play with LGP, then at right back, you're going to Nealis, which you could. I think he struggled there He's good in the air. He's good at playing a long ball. You can beat him on the dribble. The left side, you're looking at Breck Shea there. You're looking at Ben Sweat there. You're looking at Mikey Ambrose there. Where are they going to be more defensively secure? We know Diego Alonso is going to be secure defensively first. I think they go with 3/5 in the back, and they look to play on the counter more. That's my gut feeling. They did it in the last match, I think, for a reason. I think they do it here without Reyes. So if they do that, I don't know if there's a spot for Federico to start, unless they go more 3-5-2 in a setup, and they have the same with two behind Federico, Higuain, Gonzalo up top, with probably Morgan in a very free second forward role where he can drift around and go find the game. I could see that scenario too. But yeah, Miami's lineup's a question. That makes Atlanta's lineup a question. My gut feeling right now would be Bello, Robinson, Escobar, Lennon on the back line, Lorenowitz, Heinemann, Moreno as your three central midfielders, Gallagher on the left, John as the center forward, and Dom on the right side, and if not, Dom Mulroney. That's my gut feeling right now about Atlanta's lineup.
Yep, I'm right there with you. As you were processing it, I'm like, that's what I was thinking too. So I'm right there with you with the starting 11.
We are definitely cowards, Steve. We are cowards. I completely agree.
Yes.
We're not going 3 hours because
not today.
I got another hour to talk on stoppage time, and then I've got an hour of pregame, and then I've got 2 hours of a game, and an hour of postgame.
Yep.
I'm going to be drinking more mate the rest of the day. I got, and for you mate drinkers, and I think there's a few of you in the mix, I went Cruz de Malta with my first loose leaf mate for my gourd, and I like it. It's a little bitter. I've found ways to mitigate that with some sugar, with honey in the water, and that's been good. I went on a suggestion for the Canarias Serena, which is a Brazilian mate, but it's the Canarias brand is huge in Uruguay. And it's very different. I don't think it's quite as caffeinated. It's got like a little bit of mint in the mix and some other little elements mixed in. It's more like finely cut as well. It's pretty good. But if you have a mate brand that you recommend, I am all ears. I'm trying to find my mate brand to go with here. So I'm definitely on the mate train. I've had, and since I got the mate, there's been 2 days I didn't drink mate. In about 2 weeks now, I think?
Yeah.
About 2 weeks. So there's been 2 days I didn't drink mate at all. And then outside of that, I've had maybe 3 Red Bulls in 2 weeks.
Oh.
That's pretty good for me.
Yeah.
So if you have mate suggestions, the yerba mate loose leaf, if you have a brand you like, or if you know somebody who might know somebody, I am all ears. So please send them my way. Pacine's telling me to try the Cuban mate soda. That sounds wild. Materva? I don't know what to think of that. I've tried the Guayaki mate drinks, and I don't really like those as much. They're okay. I'd rather have the real mate at this point. I'm good enough now. All good with my bombisha. All good with my gourd. All good with my mate. I'm down with that. But yeah, I'm taking suggestions. Okay, I think that's going to do it for the day. So send me suggestions on mate. I'll be back at 2 o'clock. I'll actually be on at 1:20 with Andy and Randy on 92.9 The Game. 2 o'clock, Facebook.com/929 The Game for stoppage time, myself and Mike Conti. 7 o'clock, we're on air. The first half hour is kind of a continuation of the programming day. We will talk Atlanta and Miami, but yes, there might be a little bit of Braves or Falcons or whatever conversation in that gap as well. Maybe Netscape, maybe web browsers. Who knows? It could happen.
There you go.
7:30 is the official start of the pregame on 92.9 The Game on the radio.com app. Kickoff should be 8:08 from Fort Lauderdale between Atlanta and Miami. Full-time report will be on for an hour after the final whistle, so till roughly 11:15. Then I will jet outside and talk to Doug Robertson for the Southern Fried Soccer podcast. That should be posted probably around midnight, and hopefully I'll be asleep by then.
Yes.
Yes. busy day, big game. We'll be back tomorrow morning to do the Overreaction Thursday to debrief and talk about all of it. Thanks, y'all, for listening. We still have a few Marcelino Moreno scarves. Not many left at all now. We're under 10. So if you want one, you need to get it ASAP. We'll be making our donation to Atletico Palmira hopefully next week if we can move all these. It looks like we're going to clear $2,000 in the donation. And that's down to one buying the scarves, and a bunch of y'all have bought the scarves. That's down to the people who have made extra donations on top of the scarves, which has been incredible. That's down to people like Abby and John who helped save money on shipping by delivering scarves to people firsthand. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You will get your credit for helping Atletico Palmira, no question about it. Thanks, y'all. Be back in a little while on Facebook. So y'all have a good rest of the day. And Atlanta, Miami tonight, 8 o'clock. Mucho platiel.
Mucho platiel.